Okay, students, good morning to all of you once again. Today we are starting.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, today we are
Good
starting the
morning.
second portion of that chapter. The first part we have finished. The second part is related to the motion of charged particles in a magnetic field. Motion of charged particles in electric and magnetic fields, means in both the fields. We will discuss that how the charged particles move inside the fields, and first of all inside the electric field. Okay, so let us suppose that we have generated an electric field here. So the direction of electric field is from positive charge towards the negative charge. Okay, now suppose a charged particle, suppose plus E, suppose a charged particle plus E enters in this field. Suppose this is the axis. So let us suppose that this is x-axis, this is y-axis. The charged particle enters this electric field with some velocity v. Okay, like this. So what will happen? This charged particle, as it will enter inside the electric field, it will experience a attractive force from this negative plate, as this is positive charge, and will experience a repulsive force from this positively charged plate, and instead of going straight, the charged particle will move like this. Okay, will move this way. It will go straight, but as well as now it has two components of its velocity. One component is because of its inertia, that it entered like this. So one component was along x, and second component is provided by the electrostatic force, the force of electric field. So it will move along the resultant of the two velocities like this. Okay. Now let us suppose that at time t it reaches at this point here at time t. Right? Now let us suppose that this y represents the displacement of the particle from the original line. This much it displaced in time t, this much it displaced, means at time t the particle was supposed to be here, but where it is? Here. So there is some displacement along the y-axis in the particle. This is suppose x. Okay, this is displacement along x, and this is displacement along y, is displacement along y, and therefore the particle is here p. Suppose the particle is here x comma y. The coordinates of this point are x comma y. Okay. Now here what we are going to find out is how much is this y. What type of path will be followed? What we are finding, we will find out the equation of this path, and we will try to obtain the nature of the path followed by the particle. So here acceleration is equal to F upon m. This is equal to E upon m. Suppose E is the strength of the electric field. So charge into electric field upon mass. This is mass of this charged particle. Now how much is time taken? How much time it will take here? Suppose x is the displacement along x upon, it will be distance upon speed, x upon v. Okay, suppose with v velocity it entered inside. This was the velocity v with which it entered into the electric field. So that horizontal, there is no force acting horizontally along x. So the velocity along x will not change, it will remain as it is. How much it's that? That is v. The charged particle entered along x into the electric field. Since there is no horizontal force acting on the charged particle, so therefore the horizontal velocity will remain v. Okay, the only force acting is vertical, right? And that will give another velocity, another component of the velocity along due to the electric field, and the charged particle will move along the resultant of v and that v which was provided by the electric field due to the force of the electric field. So time taken is x upon v. Now we have formula y is equal to ut plus half a t square. Now y is the vertical displacement, so we will take all the components vertically. So u will be uy, a will be ay. Okay, acceleration along y axis. What is ay? Ay is this much. So how much is uy? What was initial velocity? Vertically, no velocity, because the charged particle entered along x axis. So this was 0. So y is equal to half e upon m t square. Now t is x upon v, so you can write half e upon m and x square upon v square. So from here you can write y is equal to y is equal to half e upon mv square into x square. Now look at this condition. Half is a constant, charge on the particle is constant, electric field is also constant. We have not changed the electric field. Mass of the charged particle is constant, and v is the velocity with which the charged particle entered into the electric field, and that is also a constant because horizontally no force was acting. So this v is also constant. So what you can say that y is proportional to x square. Now y proportional to x square, this equation is a equation of a parabola. Okay, the equation we obtained is the equation of a parabola. You must have done this in class 11th, that suppose if your that one variable's power is 1 and other variable's power is 2, then directly you can say that it is the equation of a parabola. So what type of path will be followed by the charged particle? It will be parabolic. Okay, so when a charged particle enters in how a charged particle will move inside an electric field, it will follow the parabolic path. This is the outcome of this this whole discussion, right? So what we are discussing here, the motion of charged particle in fields. So how the charged particle will move in an electric field? It will follow parabolic path. Okay. Now next is inside a magnetic field. Next is inside a magnetic field. So suppose we have a magnetic field in some region. So whenever a charge, we have already discussed this, that when a charge enters inside a magnetic field, it experiences a magnetic Lorentz force, and that magnetic Lorentz force is given by Q times V vector cross B vector. Okay, Fm, the magnetic Lorentz force experienced by the charge is given by Q times V vector cross B vector. Now here we can take two different cases. The case 1, V is perpendicular to B. It means that suppose we have a suppose this is the direction of magnetic field, B vector, this is suppose z axis and this is your xy plane. Okay, the charged particle enters in such a way that it enters means the charged particle enters in such a way in this field, in the magnetic field of this, in such a way that its direction of velocity is perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field. Suppose the charged particle, suppose this is direction of magnetic field and the charged particle comes like this. So you can see that the direction of velocity is on a plane like this. So this plane is perpendicular to the magnetic field. So this way. So charged particle is entering in such a way that its velocity vector is perpendicular to the magnetic field. Second case could be that it cannot enter, it is not entering at an in such a way that v vector is perpendicular to b vector. It can have some other angle. So that we will discuss in second case. First of all, the easier one, that charged particle is entering inside the magnetic field such a way that velocity vector is perpendicular to the magnetic field. Now it means like this. Suppose the charged particle enters on this xy plane here, q, right? The velocity vector, suppose, let us suppose that is this. This is velocity vector, right? Now, if suppose v vector is perpendicular to b vector, now their cross product will give the direction of magnetic Lorentz force. So what does it mean? It means that the magnetic Lorentz force will be perpendicular to the direction will be, see, the magnetic Lorentz force direction will be given by the direction of cross product. And what will be the direction of cross product? It will be perpendicular to both v vector and b vector. So you can see here that the magnetic Lorentz force will be perpendicular to v vector, right? If b vector is perpendicular to b vector, then Fm is also perpendicular to v vector. So the magnetic Lorentz force will be perpendicular to this angle, will be like this, Fm. Okay. Now, if the force is perpendicular to the velocity, then it cannot do any work on the charged particle, because a perpendicular force, what will be the work done by the perpendicular force? W equals to Fs cos theta. Now if this theta is 90, then cos 90 is 0 and work done will be 0. It means the magnetic Lorentz force, if the charged particle enters in such a way that it is perpendicular to the magnetic field, its velocity is perpendicular to the magnetic field, then magnetic field cannot do any work on the charged particle. And if it is unable to do any work on the charged particle, means it cannot speed up the charged particle or cannot slow down the charged particle. Only thing it can do is it can change the direction of the charged particle, the motion of the charged particle. So Fm is the magnetic Lorentz force is perpendicular to velocity vector, so it cannot increase or decrease the speed of the charged particle. Only it can act like a Fm can act like a centripetal force. Centripetal force. So this is the direction of force. Now the charged particle, instead of, suppose it was moving like this, but it will not go like this, it will move this way. Now suppose it reaches here. Now again the magnetic field here, is perpendicular, right? And the velocity vector is like this way, tangential. Then again the magnetic Lorentz force you can find out with the help of your Fleming's left hand rule. Magnetic Lorentz force will have this direction, so again it will turn like this. So what will happen? It will move on a circular path. So what we obtained from here is when a charged particle enters inside a magnetic field in such a way that its velocity is perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field, it follows the circular path. Okay, the magnetic Lorentz force provides the necessary centripetal force and the charged particle moves on a circular path. Now this is providing the centripetal force, so it means that BQB is equal to mv square upon r, because centripetal force formula is mv square upon r. And who's providing that centripetal force? It is BQB. What was the angle between v vector and b vector? It was 90. Okay, so therefore sin 90 will be 1, so we are taking BQB. Okay, So it means that V square cancel. How much is R? mv upon bq. What is R? R is the radius of the circular path. So how much will be the radius that we can obtain from here? That if a charged particle enters inside a magnetic field, how much will be the radius of that circular path? It depends on the mass of the charged particle, the velocity of the charged particle, then strength of the magnetic field, and the strength of the charge. Okay, so from here we can see one thing, that R is directly proportional to V. Means the radius will be large. If the charged particle moves faster, then radius will be larger. Fast moving charged particles will encircle on a larger radius, right? Then R is proportional to M also. Means the radius, the length of the radius also depends directly on the mass of the particle. Heavier particles will follow a circular path of larger radius. It means that. Okay. Then we can obtain few quantities also from here. How much will be angular frequency? It is 2 pi by it should be, just a minute, we will not take this one because we have not obtained the time period. We have a formula, V equals to R omega. So omega equals to V upon R, right? Now V is equal to V itself, R is equal to this formula, mv upon bq. V and V will cancel and you get bq upon m. So omega is equal to bq upon m. Now from here we can obtain the time period of revolution also. The time period of revolution is omega equals to 2 pi by t. So t equals to 2 pi by omega. So it is 2 pi upon omega is bq upon m. So this is 2 pi m upon bq. This is time period. Okay. So time period of oscillation, time period of revolution. Now you can observe one thing from both these expressions, that omega depends on B, the strength of magnetic field, which is actually a constant, right? Charge of the particle is again a constant and mass of the particle is also a constant quantity, right? It simply means that omega is not depending on R, okay, and is not depending on V also. So the angular frequency is independent of the radius and velocity of the charged particle. Or simply you can say that omega is a constant value, right? Similarly, time period is also a constant value. Okay? The time taken by the charged particle will be a constant and the angular frequency will also be constant. How they will remain constant? Because if you increase the radius, right? If you, whatever is the, suppose a charged particle gets a speed up inside a magnetic field, then equally the radius will also increase in such a way that the speed is increased, the time period will equally increase in order to compensate the increase in the velocity in such a way that the time period will remain constant. Once again, I think I mistaken. If suppose the velocity increases, then the radius of circular path will also increase in such a way that it will exactly compensate the increase in velocity, so that the time period or the angular frequency remains constant. Okay, so if more will be the velocity, more will be the radius of the circular path. Smaller velocity, smaller radius, in such a way that these two values will remain constant. Okay, all right. Next is case number 2. And case number 2 is, suppose v vector is not perpendicular to b vector. It means that, let us suppose that we have a condition like this. Suppose z-axis, and along z-axis we have the magnetic field. Now the charged particle, this is x, this is y, the charged particle entered in such a way that its velocity vector is this. Okay, so you can see that velocity vector is not perpendicular to the magnetic field. Now if it is not perpendicular to the magnetic field, you can obtain the three components of this velocity. One vx, one vz, and other is vy. You can always obtain three components of the velocity. So in such a way that v is equal to under root vx square, vy square, vz square. The magnitude of v will be given by this. Now what will be the resultant of vx and vy? It will be v perpendicular is equal to under root vx square plus vy square. Now we are finding out, suppose magnetic field is along z, so we find the resultant of the two other components which are not along x. So the two components, their resultant will be somewhere here, and that I am naming as v perpendicular. So now this v perpendicular, why v perpendicular? Because this component is perpendicular to magnetic field. Okay, so this v perpendicular, now for this v perpendicular you can follow the first case. What will happen? This v perpendicular will move the charged particle in a, due to v perpendicular, the charged particle will move on the circular path. Okay, but there is one more component which is vz. What that vz will do? It will take the charged particle along b also. So what will happen? The charged particle will move on the circular path as well as it will move on along the z-axis also, like this. Which type of path is this? This is called as helical path, like a spring. Okay, this is helical path. So when magnetic field enters, when a charged particle enters inside a magnetic field with a velocity which is not perpendicular to the magnetic field, it follows a helical path. Okay, there will be a perpendicular component that will revolve the charge on the circular path, as well as there is a parallel component which will take the charge along the direction of magnetic field. So it will follow helical path like this. Okay, like a spring. So let's once again, let me tell you the summary. That three points we discussed. When a charged particle enters inside an electric field, it follows parabolic path. If a charged particle moves inside a magnetic field, then there can be two cases. One, the charged particle is, the velocity of the charged particle is perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field, then it will follow circular path. Okay, and if it is not, the velocity is not perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field, then the charged particle will follow helical path. Okay, this much. Okay, now we will show that work done by magnetic field on a charged particle is always zero. That we will prove mathematically. That we discussed that for magnetic Lorentz force will be perpendicular to the direction of velocity, so it will not do any work. That we are going to prove mathematically here. Okay, so we have F vector equals to Q times V vector cross B vector. This is our magnetic Lorentz force. Okay, now F vector dot V vector will be how much? It will be Q times V vector cross B vector dot V vector. Now V vector cross B vector will be perpendicular to both V vector and B vector. Okay, now this is a vector which is perpendicular to V vector. See, this vector will be perpendicular to V vector. So this vector and this vector, they both are perpendicular to each other, right? What is dot product of two perpendicular vectors? It is equal to 0, because dot product is a dot b equals to a b cos theta. Now if theta is 90, cos theta will be 0 and a dot b is 0. So the dot product of two perpendicular components will be 0. Okay. Now by Newton's second law, F is equal to ma, right? You can write F factor equals to m time force equals to mass into acceleration, and you can write this as m dv upon dt, right? Acceleration is rate of change of velocity. Okay, so this implies that F dot v is equal to m times dv upon dt dot v vector, right? If I take the dot product of velocity here, then force, then I will have to take the dot product on other side also. You can write it like this: m by 2 v dv upon dt plus dv upon dt into v. Means it simply means that what I have done is I have noted down this twice, okay, because they are just similar terms. So if I add them, I will get a 2 times of this quantity, and then at the same time I divide it by 2 also. So half, and this will be 2 times dv upon dt into v. So we have balanced like this. Now you can write this as half m. Now this is first function derivative of second plus second, or second derivative of second and into first function. Means your first and second both functions are v only. So you can write v dot v. Okay, your both first and second functions are v only. So first into second, derivative second plus second derivative of first, it is nothing but v dot d by dt of v dot v. We must write it here like this. It's not v dot v, it should be half m d by dt of v dot. Okay. Now derivative of ab is first function, second function, then it will be first function derivative of second, right, plus second derivative of first. Okay, so it is in this way. Now how much was this value? This was 0. So you can say that half m d by dt of v dot v is equal to 0, right? Okay, now how much is the dot product of a vector with itself? A dot a, it is always equal to, if suppose you write a dot a, it will be a cos 0. Cos 0 is 1, so it becomes a square. So how much will be v dot v? It will be v square. So we have half m v square equals to 0, right? Sorry, not half m v square, but we forgot the derivative. You can write d by dt of half m v dot v equals to 0. The constant you can take inside the derivative, or you can take outside also. Now you can write d by dt of half m v square equals to 0. Yes, it should be like this. Now derivative of a quantity is 0. It means for which quantity the derivative is 0? It is for constant quantity. So it means that, what it means? It means that half mv square is equal to constant, right? Because the derivative of a constant quantity is always 0. So a half mv square is a constant quantity. Now it means that the change in kinetic energy is 0, right? Since kinetic energy is constant, so change must be 0. Now by work energy theorem, work energy theorem. Work done is equal to the change in kinetic energy. In class 11th we studied that. That was the name of the theorem was work energy theorem, and what it states that the work done is always equal to the change in kinetic energy. Now how much is change in kinetic energy? It is 0. So how much is work? It is 0. So how much is work done by the magnetic Lorentz force on a charge? It is 0. So this way we can prove that the magnetic Lorentz force cannot do any work on the charge. Okay, now next is the application, and which is an important topic of this chapter. Application of this motion of charged particles in a magnetic field, and the application is called as cyclotron. Okay, and this is very important. The application cyclotron is very much important. Now it was first designed by E.O. Lawrence and N.S. Livingston. Lawrence and Livingston in 1934. It was designed in 1934 by E.O. Lawrence and N.S. Livingston. Why they designed it? To overcome the problems, the drawbacks of a linear accelerator. This is actually a charge accelerator. Charge accelerator means, suppose I will give you an example. In case of that nuclear fission and fusion processes, particularly in fission process, what we do, we hit the heavy nucleus of radioactive material, like suppose your uranium-235 or plutonium. We hit the nucleus of that heavy radioactive material with the help of moving particles. We hit the nucleus with the help of moving particles, accelerated moving particles. Now, suppose here you have a heavy nucleus. Now we produce the charged particles here, either the protons or neutrons or electrons, whatever, as per the required process. We generate that, and then we made them to pass through a linear accelerator under a force. Suppose we produced here the proton. So what we do, we accumulate some negative charges here, and that negative charges will repel this positively charged proton, and that proton, under the effect of that repulsive force, will move towards this nucleus and will hit the target with some energy, with some velocity it will hit, and that velocity it has acquired because of the acceleration provided by the repulsive force of this negative charge. Okay, these type of devices, they are called as accelerators. Okay, they are used to accelerate the charged particles. Now these accelerators initially were of such type of little bit like this one, and one of the examples was Van de Graaff generator. Van de Graaff generator. Okay, but there is some problem with these linear accelerators, that they need a large amount of space. And since the charged particle is accelerated by moving through a tube, so it needs a large amount of space. The size of the accelerator was very bulky, right? So to overcome the drawbacks of this linear accelerator, Lawrence and Livingston, they designed a new kind of accelerator in 1934, which is called as a cyclotron. Now, what is that? That we will discuss now. Okay, so first of all, the principle. What they What was the principle? That if a charged particle is made to pass through electric field again and again in the presence of a magnetic field. Let us suppose that we already know that suppose we have a magnetic field, suppose if a charged particle enters here with velocity perpendicular to the direction of magnetic field. Suppose this is magnetic field and the velocity is perpendicular, right? Then we know that this charged particle will move on the circular path. Now if at the same time I make some arrangement that I create an electric field like this or like this, then what will happen? This charged particle, now electric field can accelerate the charged particle, can change the speed also. Okay. Initially in one section, I think 1 or 2 days back, I discussed with you that how can you check the presence of a field in some region. You pass a charged particle, if it speeds up or slows down, then there must be an electric field. And if you find that the direction alone is changing and there is no change in the speed, means neither speeding up nor slowing down, but at the same time there is a change in direction, then there must be a magnetic field present. So magnetic field can change the direction and electric field can change the speed. So if I make some arrangement here that I have an electric field, I have a magnetic field, and I enter the charged particle, so what will happen? It will move on a circular path and will cross the electric field again and again, and this way it can gain the energy, it can speed up. Okay, so this was the working principle of this cyclotron, right? If a positive ion, now again I am repeating, I am reading the principle. A positive ion can acquire sufficiently large energy with a comparatively smaller alternating potential difference by making them to cross the same electric field time and again by using a strong magnetic field. Same and again, you make the charged particle to cross the electric field again and it speeds up, gains the speed, go on gaining the speed. And how you make it to cross again and again the electric field? With the help of a magnetic field, because magnetic field can change the direction of the charged particle. Okay, so this was the working principle. Now we come on to construction. Okay, how it is constructed? We take two Ds. We take two Ds. Ds means semicircular halves. Okay, separated by a small gap. So like this. Yes, we have two semicircular Ds, okay, hollow vessels like the shape of a semicircular that half. Okay, we have circles half, semicircular parts, and they are like a hollow vessel. Okay, they have a gap in between them, a small gap in between them, and this arrangement is placed inside a magnetic field, a strong magnetic field. Okay, south and north. The direction of magnetic field is downwards. This is magnetic field. Okay, at any point, suppose this is the center, so here the direction of magnetic field is downward, right? Now both these Ds, they are connected with a alternating source of EMF. Alternating source of EMF, in chapter number 7 you will come to know that alternating means its direction and actually its polarity reverses again and again. After a particular time of interval, it reverses itself. Suppose for a particular time of interval, this is positive polarity and this is negative. This D is at positive polarity and this at negative. So on its own, after a particular time interval it will reverse. That means the positive one will become the negative and the negative one will become the positive. So this is a alternating source of EMF that will change the polarity of the D's after a particular fixed interval of time. Okay, so they are connected with a source of EMF, alternating source of EMF. Suppose this is D1, this is D2, we call them as D's. Okay, so this is D1, this is D2. Now what we do, so we have an electric field which is like this. Inside a plane we have two D's in this way, and we have a magnetic field which is perpendicular to the electric field, right? Now what we do, we place some gas here in this gap. We have a gap here, and in this gap we place some gas at a low temperature of nearly 10 raised to minus 3 mm of Hg. At this much low pressure we place a gas here. Now which gas will be placed, that depends on that what type of charged particle you need. Okay, if suppose you need a proton, for proton we place H2 gas, hydrogen gas, and for alpha particle we place helium gas. Okay, actually these gases are placed so that with the help of ionization we can produce these charged particles. So we place a gas here, suppose hydrogen at low pressure. Okay, now with the help of ionization, due to ionization we will produce a charged particle. Suppose a proton, we produce a proton. Now when this charged particle is produced, let us suppose that at that particular time D1 was positive and D2 was negative due to this. Exactly at that moment, let us suppose that D1 was positive and D2 was negative. Now what will happen, this charged particle will move towards the D1. Okay, or suppose we are taking the proton. Okay, if we are taking a proton, let us suppose that initially D1 was negative and D2 was positive, or you can change also, it can be accordingly. So if it is negative, due to this negative polarity, the proton will be attracted towards D1 and will move towards D1. But due to the presence of magnetic field, it will follow the circular path. It will not move on a straight line and will follow a circular path, and following that circular path it will reach into the gap again. Okay, follow the circular path and will again reach into the gap. Now exactly at this instant, now D1 becomes positive and D2 becomes negative. Okay, now there will be a repulsive force of D1 on the charged particle and there will be attractive force on the charged particle due to D2. So now it will move into this D. But again, since there is a magnetic field, so it will follow the circular path. Correct? So what will happen, since it is crossing to other D under the effect of a force, so it will acquire the velocity. It will gain the velocity. Okay, there will be an acceleration because this electric field is exerting force on this charged particle, so it will accelerate. If it will accelerate, it will gain velocity. But what we studied earlier, that time period of revolution or that angular velocity does not depend on the velocity and does not depend on the radius. Why? Because this increase in velocity will be compensated by the increase in radius of the circular path. So now the charged particle in D2 will move on a circular path but with a larger radius. So now with a larger radius it will reach in the gap again. Now again D1 becomes negative in that particular time. Again at that instant when the particle reaches at the gap, D1 becomes negative and D2 becomes again positive. So what will happen? It will accelerate towards D1. Accelerate, further increasing the velocity, but since the time period has to be constant, so again the radius will increase. Okay, and similarly this process will go on and the charged particle will move on a spiral path. Okay, now slowly and gradually means it increases its radius of the circular path and go on gaining the velocity. Now what will happen at the last lap, when its radius will be maximum, when it is moving along the walls of the cyclotron, we place a window here. This is a window. Okay, this charged particle will finally come out of this window and will hit the target. Okay, the charged particle with very high velocity will come out from this window and will hit the target. Okay, so this way the charged particle in this way gains the energy. Okay, energy in the form of kinetic energy. So kinetic energy it is gaining means what it is gaining? It is gaining the velocity. So this way we increase the velocity, we give energy, we energize a charged particle, okay, or we accelerate a charged particle, and therefore this arrangement is a kind of accelerator and its name is cyclotron. Okay, so this is the working. Now what you have to remember is that the increase in velocity is equally compensated by increase in radius in such a way that the time period remains constant. Okay, suppose if it takes 2 seconds initially, if it took 2 seconds initially to reach from this part to this part, then from here to here it will take 2 seconds only, then here to here it will take 2 seconds only, 2 seconds only. Now what is happening? The path is increasing, the path to be travelled is increasing, but the time period is constant, is reaching in the 2 seconds. So it means that its velocity is increasing. Okay, so this way we accelerate it. Now here again that we did earlier also, that BeV, that magnetic Lorentz force will provide the necessary centripetal force mv square upon r. BeV, that magnetic Lorentz force will provide the necessary centripetal force. V square will cancel, so r is equal to mv upon be. This is the expression for radius of the circular path. Okay. Now let us suppose that if t equals to time spent in 1d, suppose t is the time spent in 1d, then how much will be the time period of revolution? It will be 2 times t. Okay, time period of revolution, one complete revolution will be equal to 2 times t, because half time it spends in 1d. So how much will be this t? Will be equal to the distance travelled, half of the circumference upon distance upon speed, pi r upon v. Now r is this value, so pi m v upon be upon v. V and v will cancel, pi m upon be. This is the time spent in one single day. So the total time of revolution is equal to 2 pi m upon be. Now you can see that pi m be all are constants. So time is constant, or time spent in a day is also constant. Okay. Yes, now again the angular frequency omega equals to 2 pi by t. This is equal to, t is this much, 2 pi upon 2 pi m upon be. So 2 pi get cancelled, be upon m, which is again a constant value. Okay, so angular frequency and time period of revolution will remain constant. Now how many revolutions it will make in unit time, means in 1 second, so that is frequency. How many revolutions in 1 unit time it will make? 1 second. So it will be equal to 1 by t. Now t was equal to your this one 2 pi, so be upon 2 pi m, which is also constant. Okay. Now this frequency is called as magnetic resonance frequency. This is actually the resonance frequency. Now you can understand simply that here is a kind of resonance. What type of resonance is there? Resonance is the charged particle reaches at the gap, and at the same instant the polarity of the D's reverses. Okay, so this is a kind of resonance. The charged particle will reach the gap, and exactly at the same moment the polarity of the D's will get reversed. Okay, so this with what frequency you must adjust your this alternating source of EMF, how much frequency it should have, that can be obtained by this formula. Okay. how much should be the frequency, at what interval or per second, how many times the polarity should get reversed, can be obtained by this formula. With the help of this formula, we adjust the frequency of this, and hence the charged particle reaches the gap and automatically the polarity gets reversed. Okay, this is the way. This is called as magnetic resonance frequency. Magnetic resonance frequency. So this is a kind of resonance. Okay, now how much maximum velocity it can acquire? V max. What will be the formula for V max? We have formula for V equals to what was the formula? It was BER upon M. BER upon M. That was, see, BEV equals to MV square upon R. So V cancelled. How much will be V? It will be BER upon M. Okay. So V max will be equal to BE. Your R will become capital R. Capital R means radius of the D. Okay. The maximum radius of the D. The maximum radius that charged particle can acquire upon M. BE capital R upon M will be the maximum velocity, and therefore the maximum energy E max equals to half M V max square. The maximum energy the charged particle can acquire is this much. It is half M, and V max is this B square E square R square upon M square. M and square will get cancelled, and this is B square E square R square upon 2M. This is expression for the maximum energy the charged particle can have. Okay. There is one more formula with which you can obtain how much energy the charged particle can get. Suppose V is the potential difference between the D's. Right? Then E max equals to N times V. See, N is the number of number of revolutions, right? And this will be equal to 2 times N, where N is what? The number of times it has crossed the gap. Number of times particle crosses the gap. Because you can understand that in one revolution, how many times the particle crosses the gap? 2 times. So either you can multiply the value of V, the potential difference between because how many times the charged particle has crossed the potential difference? It is N times, the number of revolutions it is making. Okay. And how many times it has crossed the gap? It is, the number of revolutions is this is the number of revolutions, and this should be the number of times it has crossed the gap. Just opposite आप इसको कर दीजिए. It should be this one. Okay, number of times the particle crosses the gap, and which is equal to 2n, where n is number of revolutions. Okay, number of revolutions, because in one revolution the particle crosses the gap twice. Okay, so with this formula also you can obtain the energy maximum. Okay, now last few points to be noted. First one is what we have mentioned here, that the velocity is equal to we have BQV equals to mv square upon r. So V is equal to, your square get cancel, BER upon m. So what we have obtained, that V is inversely proportional to the mass, right? The velocity acquired by the charged particle is inversely proportional to mass, right? Now, when the charged particle moves inside the cyclotron, it go on gaining the velocity. But we know that the mass is equal to, for particles moving with high velocity, mass is given by under root 1 minus v square upon c square. the mass of the particle also changes when it starts moving with high velocity. It is in accordance with the Einstein's theory of relativity, that mass of a particle moving with high velocity also changes. It is different from the rest mass. So what will happen when the charged particle will move inside the cyclotron? It will gain so much high velocity that its mass will change. Now if the mass will change, what will happen? This velocity. So what will happen then? The time that the charged particle will spend will be equal to pi r upon see, if your velocity will increase, okay, then this factor will increase, right? Numerator will increase, this is the speed of light, this factor will increase. Now if this factor will increase, 1 minus this factor will decrease, okay? If this will decrease, what will happen to this factor? It will increase. Square root of a number less than 1, suppose you have 0.4, okay, it should be how much? 0.4, just a minute. We have 0.2 square equals to 0.04. So it means that the square root of 0.04 is 0.2. So square root of a number less than 1 is more than the number, okay? So since this is less than 1 minus, you are subtracting something from 1, so it will be less than 1. Now if it is less than 1, then square root will be more. That square root value will increase. Now the denominator will decrease. What will happen to this ratio? This value will increase, the ratio will decrease. Now the ratio will decrease means your m will be less than m naught. Your mass will change. Now if your mass will decrease, okay, then what will happen to velocity? It will increase. Now that velocity increases, now velocity is going on increasing. So what about the time period? Will start decreasing. Now what you have done, you have adjusted the frequency of the, suppose this was your D, like this. The frequency of alternating EMF was adjusted in accordance with the formula. But what is happening? When the charged particle go on gaining the velocity, its velocity increases. As a result, its time period goes on decreasing, and hence what will happen? This resonance will break. It is changing on its own frequency. But what is happening? The time period of the particle in crossing the path, in crossing the path in one particular D is now changed. And what will happen? The resonance will break between this oscillator and the moving particle, and hence that the particle will be lost inside the D itself by colliding with the walls of the D. So this is a problem that comes generally in the cyclotron. So how this problem is removed? So we have this formula. What will be time? It will be, how much will be the value of time? It will be pi m naught upon E B under root 1 minus V square upon C square. It means the new expression for time period should be this one. If we use, for m we use this formula, okay. Now this, whatever part here is reduced, okay, the increase in the change in this part, as I told you that if v will increase, this part will increase, 1 minus that part will decrease, this square root will increase, as a result this whole part will decrease, okay. So whatever is the change in this can be equally compensated with this, okay. You change the magnetic field in such a way that this product remains constant. This part is increasing, this whole part is increasing. So we will decrease B in such a way that the product remains constant and we get a constant time period. If we perform this activity to overcome, if we do this part, do this thing to overcome that problem, then that type of cyclotron is called as synchrotron. Synchrotron. synchrotron, right? Synchrotron is the particular kind of cyclotron in which the time period is made fixed by changing the strength of the magnetic field. Then what other thing you can do? You can adjust the frequency of this, okay, according to the time period of the charged particle. If you are adjusting the frequency of this alternating source of EMF, then that type of cyclotron is called as synchrocyclotron. Synchrocyclotron, right? Or another name is frequency modulated cyclotron. Okay, if you are adjusting the frequency of alternating source of EMF, then it will be called as synchrocyclotron or frequency modulated cyclotron. If you adjust the strength of magnetic field, then that cyclotron is called as synchrotron. Okay, and one last thing is that this cyclotron cannot be used to energize the light particles like electrons. It can be used to energize the heavy particles only, that are like your protons or the alpha particles.